Hello YouTube, I am Duncan or RJ, depending on the time of day, and this is going to be a very strange reading wrap up for the start of the year. So that's from January 1st through February 17th. You may very validly ask, why am I filming my first reading wrap up at 4 AM on the 17th of February? And the answer to that is, I was scared. I wanted to film this straight after Medieval-a-thon, and I just put it off. But I've got 14 books that I've read so far this year, which is huge for me, and I wanted to talk to you about them, unfortunately for you. So I don't know how concise it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be useful. What I can guarantee is that this is going to be a waste of your time, and that's what anyone ever comes on YouTube for anyway. So let's get into what I've read so far this year. Also, I'm looking at the viewfinder, not the lens. That's not going to change, so you're going to have to learn to cope with that. So the first book I finished in 2021 was So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Jon Ronson. Now, I've been working my way through Jon Ronson's work on audio. I find his audiobooks really easy to digest, particularly he narrates them himself, so it kind of doesn't really feel like a traditional audiobook. It feels more like he's just giving a talk on things he's experienced and wrote about in his life. And his book about public shaming was definitely one that was on my radar. It was something I was definitely interested in reading about, and was kind of at the top of the ones I was excited to get to. What I found really interesting about this book is that it goes into how we all participate and encourage public shaming, even if we may not see ourselves as being a part of that. And also how, when you're anonymous, you would do things that you wouldn't otherwise end up doing. That's something that a lot of people discuss about. I think sometimes it can be used as an excuse, so that people feel more able to do and say horrible things, and it's like, oh, it's the animosity, and really I think we need to take a bit more accountability than that. It isn't just that. There is a drive in us to, you know, have these people feel pain because of what they've said and done, and I think we need to be holding ourselves more accountable for that. I've also particularly liked the historical context of the fact that we banned public shaming in terms of using things like the stocks and, you know, corporal punishment in public way earlier than I expected, considering all of the other things that continued on past it, like slavery. It's just interesting how in the age of social media we're able to bring that back to such devastating consequences. And I think what's really interesting about Jon Ronson is the way that he's able to bring empathy to people that you otherwise wouldn't be able to feel empathy for. Yeah, I really enjoyed that element. So I gave that book 5 stars. It was a great way to start the year. Yeah, I was thinking about it for weeks afterwards, and I was telling everyone about it. So would definitely recommend that if you're on social media, particularly Twitter. Would definitely challenge you to pick that book up. The second book I picked up in 2021, the second book I finished, was At the Idiot Brain by Dean Burnett. It was interesting, but I found it quite difficult to get through. I was consuming it on audio while I was at work, and having to split my attention was quite difficult. I had to skip back quite a few times to understand some of the concepts, but a lot of the concepts that were being discussed were really, really interesting. I had started on a psychology program, so the neuroscience stuff was very informative and gave me kind of a, not really any kind of usable information for like essay purposes, but it definitely has introduced me to some concepts that I found quite interesting and that I want to now do more academic reading on. Okay, first book I actually have a physical copy to show you. I finished Priory of the Orange Tree at the start of 2021 before Medieval-a-thon. This was actually the first book I finished before Medieval-a-thon. The last book I finished before that. So I was definitely excited that I managed to get through that many pages before the 10th. So that was a huge achievement. I was entranced by this book. I've read a lot of fantasy series before, and the amount of world building and, you know, sweepingness, the sweeping nature of the world in this story, I've not seen it done so well in one book. In terms of that, this gave me a world that I felt was unique to other ones I've read about. Definitely caught my interest. I loved all of the characters, hearing from all of their perspectives, and it gave me a really solid story that wasn't too predictable, wrapped up nicely. I didn't feel like any threads got lost. Love the fact it's queer. I could gush about this book for a very long time, but it was a fantastic experience. Would definitely recommend this to people who, or anyone who enjoys fantasy first of all, but particularly if you're intimidated by large series. Yes, this is a chunky book, but you're kind of getting that fantasy series experience in a standalone. I know that there is a sequel / companion novel in the works, but this kind of is a self-contained story you could enjoy very easily on its own. So yeah, definitely would recommend that one as well. Okay, now we're getting into my Medieval-a-thon reads. I completed 10 books for Medieval-a-thon this year, which is fantastic, particularly because quite a few of them were novels rather than graphic novels and manga. I think I relied a bit more on manga graphic novels last year. So, but weirdly the first one I did complete was a comic. I finished RWBY, so this is the DC Comics RWBY comic. I've been watching RWBY for quite a while. I think I've been watching it as the seasons come out since volume 5. There was a bit of time really around volume 5 where I really started to get worried about where the story was going with RWBY. I'm kind of coming back on board now. Honestly, I'm just here for the Bumblebee at this point. But I picked this up. I actually bought this for my girlfriend for Christmas and decided to read it because it was on hand, and I didn't end up loving it. I feel like not a lot happened, which I guess it's not very long, and it's graphic novel format or comic format, so there can't be that much happening. It definitely felt more written for people who've never experienced these characters or this show before. I didn't love the art style. The cover art looks gorgeous, but the actual internal art isn't my cup of tea at all. It's not bad, it's just not my personal taste. There's definitely some good sections in here, particularly Weiss's sections, but then I love Weiss and everything. But particularly RWBY's sections did not really capture me at all. There's definitely some emotional scenes of Yang. Blake's story is kind of, it's emotional on the same levels that the show was. I didn't really feel that they brought much new emotions to the table, even though it was a new story. Yeah, I wouldn't be clamouring to pick this up even if you are a RWBY fan, but if you do get a chance to read it, it's not going to take up that much of your time. But yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a huge priority. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Probably more like a 2.5, but it's closer to a 3 than a 2, so I kept it at 3 stars. That was my first Bard prompt that I read it for, which is a book title that's a character's name, and it's kind of a little bit cheating. It's like the team name, but it's also all of their names, and it also is pronounced Ruby, which is the main character's name, so I thought that counted enough. The next book I finished for Medieval-a-thon is a classic, which is the first book I started reading. It's just not the first one I finished, and I actually think it was a mistake to start with a classic, even though it is very, very short. because I really struggled to get through it, and that was Call of the Wild by Jack London. I think what I struggled with, particularly early on, is that it does the thing where when someone has an accent, they'll spell the words phonetically how it's being spelt, and I struggle so hard to read read phonetically like that. It takes me out of the story. I didn't feel engaged. I had to reread sections multiple times over to try and understand what was being said, and it did completely ruin my enjoyment in the first few sections. Aside from that, this book is just brutal. The title story itself, there are a few stories in here, was one of the easier ones to get through despite its length. There was kind of a hopeful element in there while being brutal, but the other stories at the back of this book were absolutely brutal. And so if you're not ready for gore, gory death, if you're not ready for violence, if you're not ready for the brutality, definitely wouldn't recommend it. Based on enjoyment alone, I ended up giving this 2 stars because I just struggled so much. Knowing what is in it, I would possibly go back to it and reread it another time and try and rate it, because I feel like that rating is kind of unfair, but based on enjoyment alone, I can't give it anything more than a 2. I really struggled, and I acknowledge there's good stuff in here, which is why it gets a 2, not a 1. On enjoyment alone, if I completely removed what I know there is merit here, it would probably be a 1 star. So not a great way to start Medieval-a-thon at all, especially after such a great start to the reading year, but I'm glad I got it out of the way. I've read a classic already this year, and as I said, it was quite short. If it hadn't have been this short, I probably would have DNF'd and picked something else. I picked this for a book with a great first line, and ever since I finished reading it, I'm like, why did I pick this? Because I don't actually think the first line of this book is that great. I don't know, I think I was just looking for a short book and I thought, good enough, and stuck it on my TBR. So don't do that next year, guys. We can do better. Oh, no, I was wrong. So before I finished Call of the Wild, after I'd started it, I actually read To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This was my first audiobook of Medieval-a-thon, and I fell in love. For being so short, it really did capture my attention. I felt connected to the characters. You got very restricted cast due to the nature of the story. 4 people on a spaceship in space. And, you know, no contact pretty much from the outside world. Just going about doing the research side of it. It was interesting because you're seeing things that you would like to be able to see yourself, and experiencing the joy of this discovery, while also still having the sense that this is real and that this is actually happening. It felt very rooted in reality while at the same time being so mystical, and not mystical in a way that it's fantastical, but in the way that it's not something that you would experience in your everyday. It's definitely escapism to a certain extent. What was most engaging was the fact that it was also an examination on human nature and our desire for discovery. Yeah, I think it was it was just beautiful. It was like a piece of magic in a very realistic story, and 100% was in love. That was for a book with a travel element, and I don't think you can get much more travel than space travel. Definitely covered my miles there. Next book I finished for Medieval-a-thon was Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. I've been trying to start reading Star Wars novels. My girlfriend's a huge Star Wars fan. I had read one Star Wars trilogy before, and I really enjoyed it. It was a bit melodramatic in Star Wars fashion, but definitely captured my attention. This, not quite so much. I think the biggest problem I had with Aftermath is that I hated so many of the characters. There were points when I was reading this book where I would stop and I would just look to my girlfriend with desperation in my eyes and be like, I can't believe how much I despise so many of these characters. And the characters that I did enjoy were either villains, so Empire side, or characters we saw very, very little of, like legacy characters, people who are in other books and other parts of the franchise. I think also what went against this book is the interlude sections, with, you know, you going sort of travelling around the galaxy and seeing snapshots. It was interesting, but because the main plot wasn't engaging, it was really slowing everything down. I'm definitely going to try and continue this series. I want to try and finish it out. We own all 3 of the books. If I didn't, then I possibly wouldn't be continuing on, but because I own them and I want to be a completionist, I'm probably going to finish this. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. Yeah, it was like, it wasn't an unpleasant experience. I got through it fairly quickly. The characters, man. The characters. You know, oh god. Like, it was the main characters as well. Like, that's what really got me. It wasn't side characters, it was the main 2 characters. just no. Be gone. Next book I finished was volume 1 of Rain. This is by Jocelyn de Dominic. I hope I pronounced that right. My girlfriend's gonna kill me otherwise. I still haven't rated this book. I definitely enjoyed elements of it. It's a very important story, particularly for my community. This is about a trans girl starting at a new school, for the first time being herself. So being female, presenting female, using a female name, pre-transition, so trying to deal with not being discovered, you know, kind of the ideas of rejection, people that you would normally trust are, you know, omnipresent, like an omnipresent threat in this book. And I think what complicated my ability to rate it is I had a huge panic attack in the last 50 pages. So I would definitely say trigger warnings if you are transgender, deal with gender dysphoria and have anxiety. Be warned, there is the constant threat of being discovered. I am going to continue, mainly because this was for the book chosen for you prompt. My girlfriend picked this. My girlfriend is called Rain. Not directly connected, but definitely a reason why she loves this book series so much, this comic series. The art's simple but effective. Definitely gets the story across. Love the cast of characters. I'd like to say there's really good rep already in volume 1, and I'm aware that there's more rep coming for different things later down the line, particularly gender sexuality wise. Would definitely recommend a read. Don't know how widely known it is. Would recommend it, can't give you a rating, haven't decided, because it's emotions. I had a panic attack. Not fault of the book, the way I was feeling, I wanted to get through it, I pushed myself too far, had a panic attack, cried about it, but I'm gonna continue, so it was good enough for me to continue, if that helps. Okay, next book I finished for Medieval-a-thon was the original, by Brandon Sanderson and Mary Robinette Cole. I think that's how you say her name. I've read some Sanderson so far. I've read the first 3 Stormlight books, actually the first books I read to get back into reading. Not sure how recommended that is, but it's what I did. I've also read Edge Dancer and Warbreaker, and I'm currently reading the first book of Mistborn, which I should have probably done before I started The Way of Kings, but we're going with it. The original was, it just captured me completely. I was enthralled. Such an interesting plot. I guess I guess you would call it a sci-fi thriller. Not too familiar with the thriller genre. Yeah, I don't even know how to get into how I feel about the original, because it just gripped me. It gripped me so hard, and the like emotional things going on, the themes about, I probably should just describe the plot to you quickly. So our main character is a provisional replica who basically, they are created clones, an altered clone, when a crime is committed and they need to track down the original, and they can't do it by conventional means. Sometimes they will call for a creation of a provisional replica, and their job is to help the law enforcement close the case, if I'm going to try and stay a little bit vague. And the whole time there's just the tension of, you know, not knowing when the next plot twist is going to happen. It was extremely fast paced, you know, we're talking 4 hours, I think, less than 4 hours audio, and so much happens. So many twists and turns, and you never know when the next threat's going to come. But yeah, definitely would recommend you checking that one out. My apologies if the framing's changed. This is my first time using this camera to film videos like this, so I was worried that I was running out of memory. I don't think I am, so I'm gonna keep going. Should probably do wrap-ups more often than every almost 2 months, but not quite. I don't understand. So the next book I finished this period for Medieval-a-thon was the Warrior Heir by Cinder Williams-Chimer. I've had this book sitting around for a while. It's actually quite a beaten up copy, and I've not read it in its entirety until now. The book is about a kid named Jack who supposedly has a heart condition and needs to take medicine for it, and then he forgets to take his medicine one day and he feels great, and then an incident happens and all hell breaks loose, and he starts learning about his family history and the fact that he's got this magical destiny that his family have been trying to hide from him. This book took a little while to get going for me. It just felt really depressing and hopeless for a lot of it, and I think that is the point. But it just kind of clashed a bit with the high school setting that we were starting out with for me. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, it just really limited my enjoyment of this book. I picked this for debut. This is my pick for a debut novel. I'm definitely going to give the rest of this series a go. I'm a completionist, so anything that doesn't get a 2-star from me, I'm probably going to continue with. I gave this a 3 stars, so this series is in luck. So yeah, that's the thing. I felt for Jack for a lot of it, but I didn't get on board with the whole destiny thing and the task he had to do, because it just felt unfair. It just felt incredibly unfair. The way that this ended though has given me a lot more hope for the direction this series is going. Things are definitely changing, things are moving. And yeah, I am interested to see where the rest of the series goes. I think it can get a higher rating than a 3 from me, but just this one just wasn't quite there. But still glad I read it because I think I'm gonna have some good reading ahead. Okay, next book I finished for Medieval-a-thon was for the prompt, a genre you don't read from, and so I read Clap When You Land. The reason that this is doubly a genre I don't read from is because, first of all, it's contemporary, and second of all, it's written in verse. So I don't read either of those things normally. Not against them. I'm not against any genre. I'll read anything as long as it captures my attention. I'm so glad I read this because I ended up giving this book 5 stars. Yeah, just wow. What an emotional story. I loved both of the perspective characters. I was rooting for both of them. Just how unfair this situation is for both of them. How complicated this is for them. And the emotions they must be feeling. And the fact that this wasn't just a feel-good sisters find each other story, and then there's definitely some more emotional depth going on. It's definitely exposing me to cultures I'm not familiar with. Yeah. And I definitely want to continue down that road. Representation is, you know, it's important on multiple levels because as someone who requires decent representation for a couple of different reasons, or at least would like it for myself, it's great in that respect, but also supporting representation for people who aren't me and that I don't have a lot of contact with is incredibly important for opening my horizons and opening my eyes for the things other people are going through. But man, this is just a great book. I don't really know how to talk about it. I don't normally read these genres. I don't have anything to compare it to. All I know is that it was good. I really enjoyed it. And I definitely am going to be reading more from Elizabeth Acevedo. Okay, we're getting on to the last few. So for Medieval-a-thon, I have 2 more books left. First one to talk about is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I read The Night Circus last year. I think I gave The Night Circus 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I found the story to be really incredibly engaging, but I just feel like it could have done more, and that the story ended up being a little bit cliche in the end, and I kind of wanted something different from it. I'm just going to take the dust jacket off. First of all, to flex this beautiful edition that my girlfriend got me, I think last year for Valentine's Day. Absolutely beautiful. Love it. Yeah, but The Starless Sea, I love this as well. I had so many 5-star reads so far this year, and I don't know how I'm gonna do like a favourites of this year, if I ever do, even just for myself, because there's so many good books here. I can understand why a lot of people have trouble with this book. Some people don't enjoy this as much as The Night Circus because it's kind of harder to follow. They didn't connect with the characters as much. Some people just do not like it because they find it confusing. I loved how confusing it was. I think it added to it. I mostly consume this via audio. Would recommend it. But you kind of have to go with the whimsy and, you know, how entrancing it is, and just enjoy the crypticness of having someone tell you a story and you don't understand everything that's happening and you just have to trust the process. I think this is a book also as well about trusting the process when it comes to understanding stories. Again, sorry about the frame changes. still working this whole thing out. Mostly I use this camera for product photography, not for anything interesting. But yeah, yeah, Starless Sea. There are so many things to love about this book if it's turned right way up. Yeah, I loved the whimsy of it. I loved the love story. Oh god. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. There's multiple love stories actually in this book. It's arguably a series of love stories. And told in just the most lyrical, beautiful, incredible, amazing way possible. It's not the clearest thing to follow, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Stick with it. At least you have to go all the way through. Once you get halfway through and it starts to go completely mad, that's the hardest bit to get through. Keep going. It won't make sense until ever, but you will enjoy the experience, I promise you. Yeah, just diving further and further into this world and into this story. There are probably so many themes that I missed, and I'm desperate to reread this book. But yeah, would definitely recommend it to everyone. Give it a go. Not everyone. If you like the Night Circus, definitely read it. If you like the idea of a story about storytelling, a story about the nature of storytelling and our relationship with it, and also something that's weird but in like a beautiful way, I would definitely pick it up. Okay, we're on to our last Medieval-a-thon read. This was actually a buddy read with my girlfriend. She participated in Medieval-a-thon as well, kind of casually. Her reads consisted of this book and 8 volumes of Wandering Sun, which is incredible. I wish that I could have simplified my TBR like that. No. Yeah, she isn't a huge reader, so it's actually quite impressive that she managed to get through 8 volumes of manga, sorry, and Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. I forced her to listen to Rage of Dragons on audio after I finished it, because we have a character in mind for our book series, and so much of Tao and so much of him are interconnected. Aside from that, it is just an incredibly engaging series. I rooted for Tao. I know some people find him difficult to root for. They find him an unlikable character. I just enjoy seeing him destroy things. I honestly, I do. I love it. I love seeing him just rip through hordes of people. I am 100% there for his revenge plot. And this just continues it and expands it. It's definitely giving Tao more development. He's definitely less of just a rage motivated monster in this book. I also enjoyed about this book was the opportunity to get to know Queen Siora a lot more intricately, and sort of her development into the story. I loved how active she was as a character. I love the fact that she was both feminine and young and had all of the trappings that would typically come with that, while also still being a fantastic leader who cares about her people and wants to do well and is driven. I love that about her. Yeah, I loved all the characters in this, to be honest. And also just Udwok and Hadith. Can I just? If you know, you know. That was 5 stars, by the way, and that was for brown on the cover. Definitely some browns going on. Yeah, 5 stars. Okay, and then I've completed one book since Medieval-a-thon, and that is The Men Who Stare at Goats by Jon Ronson. This book surprised me. I didn't know what to expect going in. I didn't read the synopsis. I have just been picking up his books on audio whenever they've been on offer. And yeah, I wanted to save the psychopath test, and so this is one of the ones I have left. It is weird, concerning, terrifying, kind of funny in a horrifying way, but is also critical of the fact that we find it funny. So this is really an analysis into the US Secret Service, particularly their use of psychics and the idea of like psychic spies, which was something that I was vaguely aware of before going in. I hadn't really learnt a lot about. I'm hesitant to go too far into it because it's one of those books that I couldn't stop, like stopping and turning to my girlfriend and being like, what are they thinking? I can't believe that's a thing. One thing I would say is it's kind of meandering. I kind of lost track of where we were at different points, but everything he was saying was so interesting I almost didn't care. I felt like I was on this roller coaster of horror and hilarity and weirdness and, you know, despair. I loved it. I did give it 4 stars. I didn't give it 5. It isn't my favourite Jon Ronson, but it's definitely one I'm eager to revisit in physical copy, like in paperback, and go through it slower, section by section, and actually be able to properly extract all the information I need to from it. But oh god, it was an experience. I wanted to quickly just talk about what I'm currently reading, and kind of give you an idea of where I'm at. So one of the book I'm physically reading at the moment is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, first book of Mistborn, as I mentioned. Enjoying it so far, only about 100 pages in, but ooh, I love these characters. I'm way more captured by this book than any of Brandon Sanderson's first entries so far, which is probably a reason why I probably should have read it first, but I didn't, so we're gonna cope. So yes, enjoying this. And the other thing I'm currently actively reading is Esme's Wish. This was actually a pick for Medieval-a-thon. I never ended up finishing, which is a shame. This was the one I picked up for an underrated book. I'm about 75% of the way in. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's really whimsical while also having quite a serious plot at the centre of it. Definitely getting drawn in by the world. Nice, quick, easy read. It's just, it was on an ebook. It was the only ebook I read for Medieval-a-thon, and I don't have an e-reader, I read on my phone, and I just don't think I get along with ebooks currently. I'm thinking about getting a Kindle, but they're kind of expensive and I like reading physically, so I don't know if I actually will get to owning a Kindle, but I will finish Esme's Wish, and then probably continue onward. Esme's Wish is by Elizabeth Foster, by the way, so we're definitely, if you want to hold off and hear my thoughts, if I don't film another one of these videos ever, I'll probably put it in the comments as to what I thought when I finish both that and The Final Empire, just to let you guys know, in case I never return, in case this was too traumatic of an experience, who knows. But yeah, that was my reading so far in 2021. Hope you found some value in this video. If you do want to know anything more about me and my reading, I could potentially film a book haul soon. Can't actually give you much of a bookshelf tour considering I don't really own a bookshelf, but I do own over 100 unread books, so I don't know how that works. But yeah, maybe if you want to hear about my top 20 books of 2021 that I want to get to, I know it is February, so I don't know why you want that, but I'm willing to film it, maybe, if I ever want to come back. Check the description for my socials, my Instagram, Bookstagram, Twitter, Goodreads, be down below. I'll probably chuck, I got a survey down there as well for book people reading thing. If you are willing to give me 5 minutes of your time, please. If you haven't done it already, which if you have, love you. But yeah, thanks for watching, peace out, and yeah, we are Duncan and RWBY, depending on the time of day, and I'll see you maybe next time. Bye!